You see this happen every single year. It's happened for the last 20 years, the last 10 years. But every single new year, it happens again. Celebrities marry and then they break up or get a divorce fairly quickly. Sometimes within a week, usually within 1 year, and it keeps happening. So, what's the deal with this? Why did this happen? I have my own theory, and it's just a theory. There's no like scientific evidence behind this, but I think one possible reason is that it's due to the fact that people marry for the wrong reasons. And I think it's because they marry others who are just as rich and famous as them. They think that's what's necessary. That's what's going to prove a strong marriage. And I think there's too much emphasis on this. You know, perhaps it's partially true in the fact that they've achieved success as well and so forth. But I think it's overemphasized. I think society has overemphasized this. And I think our base genetics, based off 10,000 years of survival and reproduction, pushes us to be like this to a certain extent. Why? Because the mate that you choose that has more resources will help your children survive more. But I think it's been overemphasized. I think there's so many other factors out there that are more important to consider, not just how famous and rich and successful these people are. And I'm not going to lie and say it's not important at all. There's a certain level of importance there. I mean, just to put it out in a very extreme example, if you had to choose between a rich and successful and famous guy or a broke, homeless guy with no job, you would definitely choose the former. But at the same time, there's so many other factors, such as, you know, actual relationship quality. Is this person a good um, mother? Is this person someone you can truly connect with and have a relationship even after they get old and they get ugly? I think another huge thing that's overemphasized are uh, how good a person looks. So keep these things in mind. I think trustworthiness, reliability, intelligence, relationship, dependability. These things are very important and they're so underemphasized. And I highly suggest you check out books on marriage for this. There's this great Facebook and web, it's a Facebook page and a website. It's called Love You Mentoring. And it's basically a man who's gone on to interview hundreds of couples who have been together for very long time, decades in fact, and you tend to pick up on some insights because of this. Now, this sort of stuff happens all the time. There's a bunch of books on the topic, and it's on my to be read list. I highly suggest you do some research and check it out. And unfortunately, this happens all the time. Every year, a new celebrity couple breaks up, and they just never learn. And this most recent year, it was Miranda Kerr and Orlando Bloom, a very high profile couple. So Miranda Kerr is a Victoria's Secret model, angel, and Orlando Bloom is a very well known actor behind Lord of the Rings and a number of other films. And so, it's rather unfortunate that this stuff happens. It happened with Ashton Kutcher and Demi Moore. It just happens very frequently, and it's beyond normal. The divorce rates are just highly abnormal when you compare it to, generally speaking, how long a couple is supposed to be together. Now, in the past, was it maybe too strict? I think so. from what I've heard 50 to 100 years ago, you could not get a divorce even if you wanted to. I was reading the biography of Ray Kroc. He was the guy behind McDonald's. Uh, and when he was alive, he wanted, he fell in love with a girl, even though he already had a wife and she already had a husband. Now, I don't condone any of that, and his whole story is a bit, too much for me, and I wouldn't say it's the right way of doing things. But the point of it is that he had a very hard time convincing this girl to break up because the whole culture at the time was you're supposed to keep married with the person you marry forever. And if you didn't, like, your family would be disgraced and everything would go to shame. So back then, I think it was a bit too extremist on the other end, where even if you hated your husband, you could not get a divorce because of how culture was. Now I do think, especially in pop culture and mainstream celebrity culture, it's swung way too much the other way, where divorces are happening left and right. And it's not like these people are completely, nonsensical about this. From what I can tell, they're fairly smart individuals. They still seem, um, and, trust me, I've seen a little bit too many videos and interviews with Ashton Kutcher and his first wife. So I knew that they had a pretty strong relationship. And yet for them and many others to still get divorced so frequently, it just makes you think. Now we have Miranda Kerr, and she had a baby with Orlando Bloom, and now they've broken up. But Miranda Kerr is now dating the CEO of Snapchat. So I just think it's way too much. I think, again, I can't judge because I don't know them, but it really does make me think. What's right, what's wrong, and how can you find someone who will stick with you for the long term? Because divorces are messy businesses, especially when there's money involved. You get sometimes half or more of your money ripped out of you after a divorce. And so, these are questions you should be asking. Should I get a prenup? A prenup is something where basically you have an arrangement and you write it out before you get married. It's like a contract, and it says if we ever get divorced, these are the financial agreements, and you can decide on them. It could be I'm keeping all my money, or we'll split the money, or whatever it is. Prenups usually, they protect your own money, and I've read quite a lot of books from successful individuals, and they have mentioned prenups. The most common one is from Kevin O'Leary, and he is the multimillionaire who is one of the judges on the show Shark Tank. And he pretty much says you have to get a prenup, and it's pretty much the same for a lot of others who have talked about it. Get a prenup before a marriage. And if they have a lot of trouble, or they give all these excuses why they don't want to do a prenup, that's a red flag. Another thing is just look to more important traits. I think a lot of guys overemphasize things like beauty and status. And especially in this mainstream world, it's just too much. Like, you see all these people, going for these supermodels because that's where they think it's at, the status and the beauty. Well, guess what? That's gonna fade, and if you don't like what's behind that, that's gonna be a huge issue when you're raising your child, if you even get there. So again, check out some marriage books. There's a ton of factors which I don't know off the top of my head that are very important and critical to the long-term trust and long-term success of a marriage. Things like being able to fully trust your partner, being able to really get along with this person, all their ins and outs, And there's this one trick I found. It's called the basically live with that person trick. And it's one great way of really seeing the truth behind how they actually are, not just how they appear, but how they are. And it's one of those things where you think you know this person in and out, but when you actually live with them and you have to share a bathroom and all that stuff, all the hidden stuff ends up coming out. So it's rather crazy how this happens, and I'm not gonna lie, there's all sorts of dating advice that kind of screws with you in this way, and it's not completely wrong. For instance, Jenna Marbles, she's a very famous YouTuber with millions of subscribers. She did a advice video on Nice Guys Finish Last, and she said this thing where it's like, she said, do you know why Jay-Z is with Beyonce? It's because people date people on the same level. And I think that's, although there's a bit of truth to that, I think it may push people, it does push people a bit to the wrong extreme, which is, oh, you have to chase the fame and the status and the money. And that's not always the best thing to do. And that's why, although it's maybe true to a certain extent, there is some value in that, because maybe it can convey that this guy has a lot of intelligence, a lot of work ethic, a lot of stuff like that. But that's not the whole picture of the world. There are people out there who, despite being rich and famous and successful and all this stuff, they choose to marry people who are not rich or famous or all this stuff. Why? It's because that's not the whole picture. Sometimes, you don't need that money or fame. You have money enough. You would rather have someone who's maybe just making a moderate or medium income, or maybe even a lower class income, but they're dependable, they're durable, they're trustworthy. They don't have all that horrible mainstream stuff going on. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people, they're deluded, and they say stuff like, oh, it's all about that, and they'll never understand, and it ends up biting them in the butt. So thanks for watching.